My daughter-in-law lit a cigarette 3 feet from my oxygen tank. When I politely asked her to stop, my son slapped me across the face. He didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, just struck his 73-year-old mother for daring to ask for breathable air in her own home. And Sloane? She sat there smirking, smoke curling from her lips, watching me bleed. I raised that boy alone for 43 years, worked double shifts so he could eat, skipped meals so he could go to college, gave him everything I had. This is how he repaid me. But what they didn't know, what neither of them could possibly imagine, was that 15 minutes after that slap, I made 3 phone calls. 3 calls that would destroy the comfortable life they'd built on my stolen money, my mortgaged home, and my silence. My name is Darlene Smith. I'm 73 years old, and this is my story. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. To understand what happened that Saturday afternoon, you need to understand where it all began, 1981. That was the year my husband Robert died. A construction accident. A faulty crane, they said. He was 31. Deacon was 3 years old. The settlement check from Robert's employer barely covered 2 years of living expenses. After that, I was on my own, a widow with a toddler and no college degree in Portland, Oregon. I took the night shift at Morrison's Cannery, 6 in the evening until 2 in the morning, standing on concrete floors, sorting peaches and green beans until my hands cracked and bled. I'd come home, sleep for 4 hours, then wake up to get Deacon ready for school, kiss him goodbye at the bus stop, collapse on the couch until my next shift. Weekends, I worked as a prep cook at Luigi's Italian Kitchen downtown. Mr. Luigi was the only restaurant owner willing to hire a woman who could only work Saturdays and Sundays. He understood desperation. He'd been an immigrant once. For 15 years, I never bought myself a new dress, not one. But Deacon always had the right sneakers, the ones the other kids wore, so nobody would make fun of him at school. He had winter coats that fit. He had birthday parties with store-bought cakes because I was too exhausted to bake. I told myself it was worth it. What I didn't tell myself, what I couldn't admit, was that working through pneumonia, the winter Deacon turned 10, would cost me my lungs. The doctors said the infection never fully healed. Scar tissue, weakened airways, the seed of what would become emphysema, planted by a mother who couldn't afford to take a sick day. But back then, I didn't know. I only knew my son needed me to keep going. So I did. Deacon got into Portland State, not an Ivy League school, but good enough. I was proud. I took out a loan to cover his tuition, $15,000 at 9% interest. I would be paying it off until I was 62. He moved into the dorms and promised to call every Sunday. The first semester, he called twice. I made excuses. He's adjusting. He's busy with classes. He's making friends. Young people have their own lives. When his graduation ceremony came around 4 years later, I pressed my best dress, the one I'd worn to Robert's funeral, the only nice thing I owned. I imagined sitting in the audience, watching my son walk across that stage, knowing every sleepless night had been worth it. The invitation never came. I called him a week before the ceremony. "Honey, you haven't sent me the details yet. What time should I arrive?" A pause. Then, "Mom, it's going to be really crowded. Lots of walking. You'd be uncomfortable. Why don't you just rest at home? I'll send you pictures." I said, okay. What else could I say? 2 months later, I was cleaning out his old bedroom. He'd left boxes of junk behind when he moved into his first apartment. And I found it. Crumpled in the bottom of his trash can, overlooked when he'd emptied it. The invitation. Thick cream cardstock. His name printed in elegant script. 2 guest tickets attached. He hadn't forgotten to send it to me. He'd chosen not to. I sat on his childhood bed for an hour, holding that crumpled paper, trying to understand. Was he ashamed of me, of my calloused hands, my discount store clothes, the mother who smelled like cannery brine and kitchen grease? I told myself it didn't matter. My son was successful now. That was enough. But it wasn't. Not really. Deacon was 38 when he brought Sloane home to meet me. She was 23, blonde, beautiful in that sharp, expensive way, designer bag, manicured nails, heels that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She worked in marketing, Deacon said, freelance, very successful. I opened my door with a smile. Extended my hand. Sloane looked at it like I'd offered her a dead fish. She gave me a brief nod instead, her eyes already scanning my living room. "How many square feet is this place?" she asked. I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "The house. How big is it?" Not, "Hello, Mrs. Smith." Not, "It's so nice to meet you." Not even, "How are you?" Just real estate appraisal. Deacon laughed. "Sloane used to work in property development. Professional habit." He squeezed her shoulder. "Don't mind her, Mom." I didn't mind. Not then. I told myself she was just young, awkward with older people. She'd warm up. I made pot roast, Deacon's favorite from childhood. Sloane picked at it, pushing the carrots around her plate, checking her phone every few minutes. After dinner, I was washing dishes when I heard them on the back porch. The window was cracked open. Their voices drifted in. Sloane: "This house could sell for at least $600,000, maybe more if you update the kitchen." Deacon: "She's not selling. This is her home." Sloane: "She lives alone. It's a waste. All this space for one old woman?" Silence. I waited for my son to defend me, to say something, anything. He didn't. "We'll talk about it later," he finally said. "Give it time." I turned off the faucet, dried my hands, and pretended I hadn't heard a thing, but I remembered. Mothers always remember. 2 years after the wedding, my lungs started failing. The emphysema diagnosis came first, then the hospital stays. Twice in 6 months, I couldn't breathe well enough to walk from my bedroom to the bathroom. The second time, I spent 5 days in the ICU with tubes down my throat. When I came home, weak and scared, Deacon sat me down at my kitchen table with a folder of papers. "Mom, we need to talk about your finances." I was still foggy from the medications. "What about them? You're getting sicker. What if something happens to you? What if you can't manage your bills, your accounts?" He slid a document across the table. "This is a power of attorney. It lets me handle things for you if you're incapacitated, just as a backup, just in case." I stared at the dense legal language. My head ached. "I don't know, Deacon." His face softened. For a moment, he looked like the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. "Mom, don't you trust me? I'm your son, your only son. I'm just trying to protect you." "What mother doesn't trust her only child?" I signed. He gathered up all the copies before I could ask to keep one. "I'll hold on to these for safekeeping," he said. "You don't need to worry about anything." That night, after he left, I took out the little notebook I'd kept since my cannery days, the one where I recorded every important date, every transaction, every signature, habit from decades of stretching pennies. I wrote, "March 14th, signed POA for Deacon, notary Susan Welch, bank account ending 4472. Then I slipped the notebook into the drawer beside my bed, where it had lived for 30 years. I had no idea I'd just handed my son the keys to everything I owned. The bank statement stopped arriving 3 months later. I called the bank. "We show your account was switched to paperless statements," the representative told me. "Your son made the change." "Oh." I didn't want to make trouble. "That's fine. He's helping me manage things." It wasn't fine, but I told myself it was. When I needed money for a new prescription, $300 for a specialized inhaler my insurance wouldn't cover, I called Deacon. "Mom, you're spending too much." His voice was sharp, impatient. "I'm looking at your accounts. You need to cut back." "Cut back? I'm only paying for groceries and medications." "I'll send you $400 a month. That should cover everything. I'll handle the rest. Bills, taxes, whatever." $400. My Social Security check was $1,800. Where was the other $1,400 going? "Deacon, I don't understand." "Mom, do you want me to help you or not? Because if you're going to question everything I do, maybe I should just let you handle it yourself." The threat hung in the air. I was 71 years old, tethered to an oxygen tank, struggling to walk to my mailbox. How could I manage everything myself? "No," I whispered. "Thank you for helping." I didn't know then what he was doing with my money. I didn't know about the $180,000 drained from my retirement account. The $75,000 in stocks, sold without my knowledge. The second mortgage on my house, $200,000, taken out with my forged signature. I didn't know about Sloane's Birkin bags, Deacon's new BMW, their vacation to the Maldives while I rationed my inhaler puffs. I didn't know that somewhere in their bank records, transfers were labeled Mom Fund. Inheritance early withdrawal. She won't notice. But I was about to find out. Saturday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was sitting in my living room with a novel I'd borrowed from the library. The oxygen cannula looped around my ears, the quiet hiss of the tank my constant companion. Outside, October rain tapped against the windows. The front door opened without a knock. Sloane walked in first, shaking water from her designer umbrella. She didn't greet me, didn't even glance in my direction. She crossed to the couch across from my chair, dropped her purse, and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. My chest tightened. "Sloane, please." She struck a match, lit the cigarette, took a long drag. The smoke drifted toward me. My damaged lungs seized. I coughed. That deep, rattling cough that sounds like gravel scraping bone. "Sloane, dear." I kept my voice calm, pleasant. "Would you mind smoking outside? The doctor said I need to avoid secondhand smoke with my condition." She exhaled directly at me, a thick gray plume. "This is my house, too." Her eyes were flat, bored. "I'll smoke where I want." I gripped the armrests of my chair, felt the familiar flutter of anger I'd spent decades suppressing. "Technically," I said quietly, "this is still my house. I'm just asking you to step outside for a few minutes." Sloane's lip curled. She opened her mouth to respond, and Deacon appeared in the doorway. He'd heard everything. I could tell by the way his jaw was set, the way his fists clenched at his sides. For one foolish moment, I thought he might defend me, his own mother, the woman who raised him alone. But when he looked at me, there was no love in his eyes, only contempt. "What did you just say to my wife?" Deacon's voice cracked through the room like a whip. "I only asked her to smoke outside." "Shut up!" He crossed the space between us in 3 strides. "You know what, Mom? You smell worse than her cigarette. You and that disgusting tank. The whole house reeks of you." I flinched. "Deacon?" His hand moved faster than I could process. The slap connected with my left cheek, hard, vicious. The force of it knocked me sideways in my chair. My oxygen cannula ripped from my nose. My glasses flew off my face and clattered somewhere on the floor. For a moment, there was only ringing silence. The taste of copper on my tongue, the burn spreading across my cheekbone. Then, Sloane laughing. Not a shocked gasp, not a horrified cry. A laugh, low and satisfied, like she'd been waiting for this. I scrambled for my oxygen tube with shaking hands. My lungs were already screaming. I found the cannula, shoved it back under my nose, gasped in precious air. Deacon stood over me. His face was red, his chest heaved. "You're lucky I don't throw you out right now," he said. "This is my house. You're just living here because we let you." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. 43 years of sacrifice, and this was what it had come to. My son's handprint throbbing on my face, his wife smirking from the couch, smoke still curling through the air I couldn't breathe. They left 20 minutes later. Going to dinner, Sloane announced. She needed sushi. Deacon grabbed his keys without looking at me. The door slammed. The house went quiet. And in the corner of the room, behind the TV, a small red light blinked. The security camera I'd installed after the neighborhood break-ins 6 years ago. Still recording. 15 minutes. That's how long I sat in my chair after they left, the afternoon light fading, the rain still falling, my cheeks swelling into something I'd have to explain or hide. I stared at my hands, these hands that had sorted a million cans of peaches, that had chopped vegetables until my joints ached, that had held Deacon when he was small enough to fit in my arms, when he cried for his daddy and I had no answers. These hands that had signed away my power to a man who had just struck me. Something shifted in my chest. Not the usual wheeze of damaged lungs. Something deeper. For 43 years I had made excuses. He's stressed. He's tired. He doesn't mean it. He's my son. But there are no excuses for making your mother taste blood. I stood up. Slowly, every bone protested, but I stood. I walked to the mirror in the hallway, looked at my reflection. The bruise was already forming, a purple shadow spreading across my cheekbone. By morning, it would be ugly, visible, undeniable. I took out my phone, opened the camera, photographed my own face at 4:17 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. Then I walked to my bedroom, opened the drawer beside my bed, took out the notebook where I'd recorded every important moment for 30 years, and I reached for my phone again. 3 numbers. 3 people I should have called a long time ago. My fingers trembled as I dialed the first one, but when the line connected, my voice was steady. "Margaret, it's Darlene. Darlene Smith." I took a breath. "I need your help. My son just hit me, and I think he's been stealing from me." There was a pause, then Margaret's voice, calm and unsurprised. "I've been waiting for this call. Tell me everything." Margaret Chen was the first call, an elder law attorney I'd met at church 10 years ago. She'd handed me her card once, told me to call if I ever needed anything. I'd tucked it in my wallet and tried to forget why she'd given it to me. She listened without interruption as I described the slap, the financial control, the power of attorney I'd signed without understanding. "Darlene," she said when I finished, "what you're describing is textbook elder abuse, financial exploitation, battery. Both are crimes under Oregon law. I don't want to send my son to prison. What do you want?" I closed my eyes. "I want my life back." "Then we need documentation, evidence. Do you have anything?" I thought of the notebook, the camera. I might. The second call was to Patricia Nguyen, retired forensic accountant. We'd met in a seniors yoga class, 2 old women trying to touch our toes. She told me once that she could follow money the way a bloodhound follows a scent. "Darlene, I've been worried about you," Patricia said. "That son of yours, the new car, the fancy trips, it never added up. Can you find out what he took from me? Get me bank statements, and I'll tell you exactly where every penny went." The third call was to David Hartley, investigative reporter at KPTV. He'd interviewed me last year for a story about pandemic support for seniors. Afterward, he'd said, "If you ever have a story worth telling, call me." "David, I have a story. Tell me." When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Darlene, do you have proof? Anything visual?" I thought of the security camera, the memory card no one knew about. "I have everything." I thought I was alone, but that afternoon I learned the truth. I had never been alone. I had just been afraid to ask for help. If this story is making you feel something, please hit that like button right now. I know so many of you have been in situations like mine, maybe not exactly the same, but you understand what it feels like to be taken for granted by the people who should love you most. If you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it with them. They shouldn't feel alone either. Now let me tell you what happened next. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the impact of Deacon's hand, heard Sloane's laughter, saw the contempt in my son's face. At 2 a.m, I got out of bed. My cheek throbbed. The bruise had deepened to an ugly purple-black, spreading toward my eye socket. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and photographed it again. Different angle, different lighting. Timestamp, 2:14 a.m. Then I went downstairs. The house was dark, silent. Deacon and Sloane hadn't come back, probably staying at a hotel to punish me for ruining their evening. I crept to the living room. The security camera sat in its usual spot, disguised as a decorative clock on the shelf behind the TV. Deacon had never paid attention to it. He thought it broke years ago because the indicator light had burned out. He didn't know I'd replaced the bulb, didn't know the camera still recorded to a memory card hidden inside. My hands shook as I opened the back panel and extracted the tiny SD card. 48 hours of footage, including 3 o'clock that afternoon. I slipped the card into my bathrobe pocket. Then I went back to my bedroom and retrieved my notebook from the drawer. Page by page, I compiled everything. Dates, account numbers, the name of the notary who'd witnessed the power of attorney. Every detail I'd recorded out of habit, never knowing it would matter. At 5 a.m, I finally sat down at my kitchen table with a cup of tea I was too tired to drink. I was terrified. My son had hit me. My daughter-in-law had laughed. My money was gone. My house might not even be mine anymore. But for the first time in years, I wasn't helpless. I had evidence. I had allies. And I had nothing left to lose. Margaret came to my house 2 days later, timing her visit for when Deacon and Sloan were at work. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with steel gray hair and the sharp eyes of someone who had seen too much cruelty to be surprised by any of it. She sat at my kitchen table, reading through the power of attorney document I'd managed to request a copy of from the notary. "Standard boilerplate," she murmured. "But look here." She tapped a clause near the bottom. "He's authorized to manage your finances for your benefit, not his. Every dollar he spent on himself is a breach of fiduciary duty." Is that bad? It's a felony, Darlene. She looked up at me. "What he did is called financial elder abuse. Under Oregon revised statutes, it's a Class C felony, up to 5 years in prison, plus civil liability, potentially triple damages." Triple damages? My head spun. "I don't understand how this happened," I whispered. "He's my son. I raised him." Margaret reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. "The people closest to us are often the ones who hurt us most. They know our weaknesses. They exploit our love." She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Patricia. We need a full forensic accounting. Bank records, investment accounts, property liens, everything." "How do we get those?" "Leave that to me. I'll file a motion as your attorney. The bank has to comply." As she made the call, I watched her. This woman I'd known casually for a decade was now my lifeline, my advocate, the first person in years to look at my situation and say, "This is wrong. Let's fix it." "Patricia says she can have a preliminary report in 2 weeks," Margaret said, ending the call. "In the meantime, don't confront Deacon. Don't let him know anything has changed." "And the video?" "Keep it safe. That's our insurance policy." Patricia called me 12 days later. "Sit down, Darlene." I was already sitting, but the tone of her voice made me grip the edge of my kitchen table. "I've been through everything. Bank statements, investment records, mortgage documents." She paused. "It's worse than we thought." My mouth went dry. "How much?" $485,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. That's everything. My entire retirement, my savings, Robert's life insurance. Gone. Patricia's voice was gentle but unflinching. $180,000 from your retirement account, $75,000 from the stock portfolio your husband left you, and $200,000 from a second mortgage on your house, taken out 18 months ago. A second mortgage? I never signed. I know. I compared the signature on file with your actual signature from other documents. They don't match. He forged it, Darlene. Forged. My own son. Where did the money go? I managed. I followed every transfer. $68,000 went to a BMW dealership, a car registered in Deacon's name. $45,000 to various luxury retailers. $32,000 to travel agencies, flights, hotels, resorts. The Maldives, I whispered. I'd seen the photos on Sloane's Instagram. And $90,000 to what appeared to be gambling accounts online. I found notations in some of the internal bank records. Patricia hesitated. "Do you want to know what they labeled the transfers?" I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Mom Fund, Inheritance Early Withdrawal, and the worst one, She Won't Notice." I put down the phone, walked to the bathroom, vomited until there was nothing left. $485,000, 43 years of sacrifice, and my son thought I wouldn't notice. I met David Hartley at a coffee shop downtown, away from my neighborhood, away from anywhere Deacon might see. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, graying at the temples, with the kind of face you trust immediately. He'd won an Emmy for his investigative series on nursing home abuse. Now he was looking at me with those serious reporter's eyes. "Tell me again," he said, "from the beginning." So I did. The power of attorney, the missing money, the slap, Sloane's cigarette, all of it. When I finished, David was quiet for a long moment. "Darlene, your story is exactly what the public needs to hear. Elder abuse is epidemic in this country, But people don't talk about it because they're ashamed, because the abusers are family. I'm not ashamed anymore. Good. He leaned forward. But we need to do this right. The video. Can I see it? I slipped the memory card across the table. David inserted it into his laptop. I watched his face as the footage played. The color drained from his cheeks. His jaw tightened. My God, he murmured. On the screen, I watched my son slap me again, watched myself fall sideways, watched Sloan laugh. David closed the laptop. When he looked at me, his eyes were wet. This is it, he said. This is everything we need. Video evidence, financial records, your testimony. We can build a 12-minute piece that will... He stopped himself. But I need to ask you something first. What? Are you ready for the whole world to see this? Your neighbors, your church, your son's colleagues. Once it airs, there's no going back. I thought about all the years I'd stayed silent, all the humiliation I'd swallowed, all the love I'd given to someone who saw me as nothing but a bank account. I'm ready. Deacon noticed something was different. It started small. He commented that I seemed distracted during his weekly visit, a 30-minute obligation he fulfilled with visible impatience. He asked why I'd been going out so much. Church friends, I said. We have a new book club. Since when do you read? I let the insult pass. People change. Sloan was more direct. I overheard her on the phone with Deacon one evening when they didn't know I was in the hallway. She's acting weird, Sloan said. Going out all the time. She never used to leave the house. What if she's talking to someone? Who would she talk to? Deacon's voice was dismissive. She doesn't have any friends. She has those church people and that reporter who interviewed her last year. A pause. I'll look into it. That night, after I went to bed, I heard footsteps in the hallway, then the sound of my purse being opened. Zippers. Shuffling. He was searching my things. I lay perfectly still, breathing slowly, pretending to sleep. After 10 minutes, the footsteps retreated. The next morning, Deacon confronted me at breakfast. Mom, have you been talking to anyone about our family? About money? I looked up from my oatmeal, my face a mask of confusion. What do you mean? I mean, lawyers, reporters, anyone. Deacon, who would I talk to? I kept my voice frail, helpless, the voice he expected. I'm just an old woman with bad lungs. No one listens to me anyway. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded, apparently satisfied. Good. Keep it that way. He left without saying goodbye. What he didn't know was that the most important things weren't in my purse. They were in a safety deposit box at a bank across town, where Margaret had helped me secure everything. He had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks after the slap, we met at Patricia's apartment. Margaret had printed the civil complaint, 23 pages documenting every dollar stolen, every lie told, every violation of fiduciary duty. David had a thumb drive with the finished segment, 12 minutes of footage, interviews, and damning evidence. Here's the plan, Margaret said. We file the lawsuit Monday morning. The process server will deliver the papers to Deacon at his office around noon. Sloan gets served at the same time, wherever she is. And the broadcast? I asked. David nodded. 6 o'clock news, Monday night. By the time Deacon gets home from work, the whole city will have seen it. Patricia spread financial charts across the coffee table. I've prepared a summary for the broadcast. Visual aids showing exactly where the money went. The BMW, the Birkin bags, the Maldives trip. I looked at my 3 allies. A lawyer, an accountant, a journalist, women who barely knew me but had dropped everything to fight for me. Why are you doing this? I asked. You don't owe me anything. Margaret smiled. Because I've seen this story 100 times, Darlene. Elderly parents robbed by their own children. Most of them never fight back. They're too ashamed, too scared, too broken. But you called us, Patricia added. That took courage. David leaned forward. And your story could help others. Every person who watches will know the warning signs, might recognize them in their own family, might make that phone call they've been afraid to make. Margaret pushed a document across the table, a consent form for the broadcast. This authorizes KPTV to use your name and likeness. Face shown, real name, no anonymity. I picked up the pen. 43 years of silence was enough. I signed my name. Monday morning, 8 o'clock. I sat in my living room with a cup of chamomile tea I couldn't drink. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, not from fear, from anticipation. The blue cardigan Robert had given me decades ago hung on my shoulders. He'd said blue was the color of courage. I needed every ounce of it today. My phone buzzed. Margaret. Filing now. Papers will be served by noon. I typed back, I know. I'm ready. Outside, October sunlight filtered through the curtains. A beautiful day. The kind of day that feels too bright for ugly truths. At 8:45, Deacon's car pulled out of my driveway. He and Sloan had stayed over the night before, something about their apartment's plumbing being repaired. They hadn't spoken to me all morning, just grabbed coffee and left. I watched his black BMW disappear around the corner. He was driving to work, to his office at Northwestern Mutual, to the life he'd built on my stolen savings. In 3 hours, everything would change. I picked up my book, the same novel I'd been reading the day he hit me. I couldn't focus on the words, but I turned the pages anyway. Routine was comfort. At 11:30, my phone buzzed again. David. Segment is locked. Airing at 6 p.m. Are you watching? I'll be at Patricia's. She's hosting. Good. You shouldn't be alone for this. I set down the phone and looked around my living room. The chair where I'd been slapped, the spot where Sloan had blown smoke in my face, the corner where the camera had captured everything. By tomorrow, this room would feel different. The memories would still be here, but their power would be broken. I just had to make it through the next 6 hours. 12:15. Northwestern Mutual's downtown Portland office. I wasn't there, but Margaret had arranged for someone to observe. Her paralegal, a young woman named Jessica, sat in the lobby, pretending to wait for a meeting. She sent live updates. 12:14, process server entered building. 12:16, heading to 5th floor. I clutched my phone at Patricia's apartment, watching the texts appear. 12:18, server asked for Deacon Smith. 3 colleagues nearby. 12:19, Deacon came out, confused, then nothing for 2 minutes. I could barely breathe. 12:21, he opened the envelope, read it. Face went white. Margaret leaned over my shoulder. Elder financial abuse, battery. He's seeing it in black and white for the first time. Another text, 12:22, colleague asked if he was okay. Deacon didn't answer, ran to bathroom. Good, Patricia said quietly. Let him panic. My phone buzzed again, a different number this time. David. Sloan got served too. She was at a coffee shop meeting with a client. The client saw the complaint header before Sloan could hide it. What did it say? Elder financial abuse. Battery. Multnomah County Circuit Court. Her client left before they even ordered. I set down the phone. My hands were steadier now. For years, I had been the one blindsided, the one caught off guard by cruelty, the one who never knew what was happening to her own money, her own home, her own life. Now they knew how it felt. 6 more hours until the broadcast, Margaret reminded me. They'll probably call you. Don't answer. Don't engage. As if on cue, my phone rang. Deacon's number. I let it go to voicemail, then I blocked it. Whatever he had to say, he could say it to my lawyer. 6 o'clock, Patricia's apartment. Margaret sat on my left, Patricia on my right. The television glowed in front of us. Good evening, I'm Christine Hayes. Tonight a disturbing case of elder abuse right here in Portland. David's segment began with statistics. 3 million elderly Americans financially exploited each year, 80% by family members. Then the screen cut to my face. My name is Darlene Smith. I'm 73 years old, and my son stole nearly $500,000 from me. I watched myself tell the story, the power of attorney, the missing bank statements, the $400 allowance from my own money, then the footage, the security camera video, time-stamped and clear, Sloan lighting the cigarette, me asking her to stop, Deacon bursting in. His words, "You smell worse than her cigarette," echoing through Patricia's living room, and the slap. Caught from above, undeniable, my body jerking sideways, my oxygen tube flying loose, and Sloan, clear as day, laughing. I heard Margaret inhale sharply. The segment cut back to my interview. I raised him alone for 43 years. I worked 2 jobs so he could go to college. And this is how he repaid me. David's voiceover detailed the financial evidence, the BMW purchase, the luxury bags, the Maldives vacation. Charts appeared showing the money trail. Patricia's work, translated into television graphics. The lawsuit seeks full restitution of $485,000 plus damages, David concluded. Criminal charges are also being considered by the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office. The segment ended. Patricia muted the television. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then my phone began to vibrate. Texts from church friends, from neighbors, from people I barely remembered. And on Twitter, I didn't understand Twitter, but Patricia showed me. A hashtag was rising. Hashtag Justice for Darlene. For the first time in years, I wasn't ashamed. I was proud. If you've made it this far, you're part of my family now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Would you take one moment to subscribe to this channel? Every subscription helps more stories like mine reach people who need to hear them, people who might be suffering in silence right now. Now let me tell you what happened after that broadcast, because things moved faster than I ever expected. Within an hour of the broadcast, Deacon's carefully constructed life began to collapse. Patricia had set up a Google alert for his name. She read the notifications aloud as they poured in. Twitter mentions are exploding. People are tagging Northwestern Mutual, asking why they employ an elder abuser. His LinkedIn profile is getting comments. Someone wrote, "I went to college with this guy. Can't believe he hit his own mother." Facebook, oh my. Someone found Sloan's Instagram. Her Maldives photos are getting thousands of comments. Margaret looked at her own phone. Jessica says Deacon left the office at 4 p.m., walked out without talking to anyone. His assistant said he looked destroyed. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just a hollow emptiness where my love for my son used to live. Sloan's situation was worse. She'd built her freelance marketing business on Instagram, showcasing her luxury lifestyle to attract wealthy clients. Now every post was flooded with comments. Living your best life with your mother-in-law's stolen money? How much did that Birkin cost? Was it worth slapping an old woman? Unfollow, I'm not supporting an elder abuser. By 9 p.m., she'd deleted her entire Instagram account, but screenshots were everywhere. The internet never forgets. My phone rang one last time that night. I'd blocked Deacon, but this was a different number. I answered. "Mom!" His voice cracked, broken, desperate. "Mom, what did you do? What the hell did you do?" I held the phone steady. "No, Deacon. The question is, what did you do? To me, to my money, to my home." I paused. "If you want to communicate, call my lawyer. Her number is in the court filing." Then I hung up, and for the first time in 43 years, I didn't feel guilty about standing up for myself. Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock. I learned what happened from Margaret, who got it from sources at the company. Deacon arrived at Northwestern Mutual wearing the same clothes from the day before. Unshaven, hollow-eyed. He'd clearly been up all night. His assistant barely looked at him. She pointed at the HR director's office and said 2 words. "They're waiting." Inside the conference room sat 3 people, the HR director, Deacon's supervisor, and a company attorney. The HR director spoke first. "Mr. Smith, as you know, Northwestern Mutual has strict policies regarding employee conduct. The allegations against you, elder financial abuse, battery, are directly contrary to our company values." "It's a misunderstanding." Deacon's voice was hoarse. "My mother is old, confused. She doesn't know what she's saying." "There's video evidence, Mr. Smith." The supervisor slid a tablet across the table. The security footage was paused on the frame just before the slap. "We've all seen it. The whole country has seen it." I was under stress. You struck your elderly mother for asking your wife not to smoke. The attorney's voice was flat, while she was connected to an oxygen tank. Silence. We're suspending you pending a full investigation, the HR director continued. If the charges are substantiated, and given the evidence that seems likely, we'll have no choice but to terminate your employment. Deacon started to argue, then stopped. His shoulders slumped. They collected his badge and company laptop. Security escorted him out through the back entrance to avoid the news vans that had gathered out front. Margaret told me later that 3 Northwestern Mutual employees filmed him leaving. Those videos hit social media within the hour. By noon, Deacon Smith had become the face of elder abuse in Portland, and he had no one to blame but himself. 3 days after the broadcast, Margaret's phone rang. "You're not going to believe this," she told me when she called. "Sloan wants to make a deal." My stomach tightened. What kind of deal? She called my office this morning. Says she had nothing to do with the financial abuse. That was all Deacon. She's willing to testify against him in exchange for dropping the civil charges against her. I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair. She wants to turn on her own husband? Rats abandon sinking ships. Margaret's voice was dry. She also gave us something useful. Apparently Deacon has a hidden account. Another $30,000 he didn't disclose. The number barely registered. What was $30,000 more when he'd already stolen almost $500,000? "There's more," Margaret continued. Sloan admitted she knew about the financial exploitation from the beginning. She didn't think it was a big deal. Her words. She knew? She also admitted something else. The smoking? It was deliberate. She was trying to make you so uncomfortable that you'd want to move out. They planned to sell the house once you were gone. I closed my eyes. The cigarette smoke drifting toward my oxygen tank. Sloane's flat stare. She'd known exactly what she was doing. What should I do? Accept her testimony. Don't drop the charges. She's liable for the battery regardless, but we can use her against Deacon. Her statement about the forged signature alone is devastating. And Deacon? Does he know his wife is betraying him? Margaret paused. He will soon enough. These things always come out. I hung up the phone and stared out my window. Sloan had turned on Deacon without hesitation, like he was a stranger, like their marriage meant nothing. Then again, maybe it never had. Maybe it was always about my house, my money, my death. 2 weeks later, I walked into the Multnomah County Courthouse with Margaret at my side and my oxygen tank rolling behind me. The preliminary hearing took place in courtroom 4B, not a trial, just a procedure. But important. The judge would review the evidence and determine if the case could proceed. I sat at the plaintiff's table. Patricia sat in the row behind me for moral support. And across the aisle, Deacon. He looked like a stranger, gaunt, haggard. His suit, once impeccable, hung loose on his frame. His eyes, when they met mine, were hollow. I looked away. The judge, an older black woman with silver hair and reading glasses, reviewed the documents in front of her. Then she began reading aloud. The plaintiff alleges elder financial abuse totaling $485,000, battery resulting in visible injury, breach of fiduciary duty, forgery of mortgage documents. Each word landed like a stone. Deacon flinched at forgery. Patricia was called to testify about the financial records. She walked the judge through the money trail, bank transfers, wire receipts, the gambling accounts, the luxury purchases. "And these internal notations?" the judge asked, peering over her glasses. "She won't notice. That was written by the defendant?" "Yes, Your Honor. It appears on multiple transfer records." The judge's expression hardened. Then came my turn. I stood, slowly, leaning on my cane, and faced the courtroom. "Mrs. Smith," Margaret prompted gently, "would you like to make a statement?" I looked at the judge, at the court reporter, at the handful of observers in the gallery, then finally at my son. "Your Honor," I said, "I didn't want revenge. I just wanted my dignity back, and I want to make sure no other mother has to feel what I felt." My voice didn't waver. Deacon looked down at his hands, and I knew, for the first time in years, that I had won something more important than money. I had won my self-respect. 1 month after the preliminary hearing, Deacon's lawyer called Margaret. "He wants to settle." The negotiations took 2 days. I didn't participate directly. Margaret handled everything, but she kept me informed at every step. "They're offering full restitution of the $485,000, she reported after the first day, plus $75,000 in legal fees and emotional damages, total of $560,000. Can he pay that? Not in cash. He's proposing $350,000 upfront and the remainder in monthly payments over 10 years. I thought about it. 10 years of checks from my son. 10 years of reminder that our relationship had been reduced to a debt obligation. What about the house? The mortgage will be released. Full ownership returns to you. I've verified the lien will be cleared within 30 days. The second day brought additional terms. Deacon would attend 6 months of anger management counseling. Both he and Sloan would be subject to a restraining order. They couldn't come within 1,000 feet of me or my property for 5 years. And criminal charges? I asked. Margaret hesitated. The DA is still reviewing. The settlement doesn't affect the criminal investigation, but... She paused. Honestly, Darlene, with the civil case resolved and the public attention, they may not pursue it. Oregon courts are overwhelmed. I nodded slowly. Prison had never been my goal. Accountability was. On the last day of negotiations, I signed the settlement agreement. My signature on the final page, firm, clear, nothing like the shaky scrawl I'd put on that power of attorney 3 years ago. Margaret witnessed it. Patricia was there. David Hartley waited outside with a camera crew for a brief statement. "It's over," Margaret said when the ink was dry. But it wasn't over. Not really. The money would come back. The house was mine again. But my son was lost forever. Some things can't be repaired. The settlement didn't save Deacon's career. Northwestern Mutual terminated him officially 1 week after the preliminary hearing. The termination letter, a copy somehow found its way to David Hartley, cited violation of company ethics policy and conduct unbecoming an employee. No severance, no references, just a cardboard box of personal items and a security escort to the parking lot. I learned from Margaret that he applied to 15 other insurance companies in the following months. Not one called him back. The problem was Google. Type Deacon Smith Portland into any search engine, and the first result was David's investigative report. The video of him slapping his mother, the financial charts showing stolen funds, the headlines, "Insurance executive charged with elder abuse." No company would touch him. Sloan fared no better. Her freelance marketing career depended on social media presence and client trust. Both evaporated overnight. The luxury lifestyle she'd curated so carefully became evidence of exploitation. She found work eventually, a desk job at a call center, processing customer complaints, minimum wage, no Instagram opportunities. 3 months after the settlement, I received news from Margaret that didn't surprise me at all. Sloan filed for divorce. Already? Cited irreconcilable differences. She doesn't want to be associated with him anymore, and she doesn't want to share the debt burden. He's paying you back for the next 10 years. They sold the BMW, sold most of the luxury goods, though at a fraction of what they'd paid, moved into a small apartment in a neighborhood far from downtown Portland. I didn't wish them ill. That would have required caring about them, and I was too tired for hatred. But I won't pretend I felt sorry for them either. Consequences are not cruelty. They're simply the truth catching up. I didn't expect the letters. They started arriving the week after the broadcast. First a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. People wrote from across Oregon, from other states, from as far away as Florida and New York. "Dear Mrs. Smith, I watched your story and cried. My daughter has been taking money from my account for years. I was too ashamed to tell anyone. I'm 81 years old. Because of you, I finally told my grandson to stop cashing my Social Security checks. Thank you. My mother died last year. I wish she'd had your courage. Her caregiver stole everything." I read each letter, every single one. I kept them in a shoebox that became 2 shoeboxes, then a whole shelf in my closet. The church community rallied around me too. The Sunday after the broadcast, I walked into St. Andrews for the first time in weeks. I expected whispers, judgment. What I got was a standing ovation. Mr. Chen, the man who ran the community garden, gripped my hand and said, "You did a brave thing, Darlene. We're proud of you." A month later, they threw a small party in the fellowship hall. A banner hung across the refreshments table. "Welcome home, Darlene. We're proud of you." Old friends I'd lost touch with called. The owner of Luigi's Italian Kitchen, the restaurant where I'd worked weekends 4 decades ago, left a voicemail. "Darlene, I always knew you were the strongest person I ever met. This proves it." I saved that message. Patricia said the #JusticeForDarlene hashtag had been shared over 50,000 times. David told me the segment had become KPTV's most watched local story of the year. But the letters meant more. Each one was proof that my pain hadn't been for nothing. By speaking up, I'd given others permission to speak too. 6 months after the settlement, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. Deacon had gotten a new phone after I blocked his old one, but I knew his voice the moment he spoke. "Mom." I almost hung up. My finger hovered over the button, but something made me wait. "Mom, it's me." His voice was different, smaller, worn down. "Please, don't hang up." I said nothing, just listened. "I'm in the anger management program. It's been hard, but I'm learning things about myself." A long pause. "About what I did to you." Still, I waited. "I'm not calling to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that." His voice cracked. "I'm calling because I needed you to know that I'm sorry. I know those words don't fix anything, but I'm sorry. For the money, for the slap, for all of it." I closed my eyes, heard the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, saw the teenager I'd driven to college, trying not to cry, remembered the man who'd signed my mortgage without permission. "Deacon," I said finally, "I will always love you. You're my son. Nothing changes that." I heard him exhale. Relief. Hope. "But," I continued, "I cannot have you in my life right now. Maybe one day, when you've truly changed, not just attended programs, but actually changed, we can talk again, but that day is not today." Silence on the line. "I understand," he whispered. "Goodbye, Deacon." I hung up before he could respond. Then I sat in my living room, the same room where he'd slapped me, the same chair where I'd bled, and I waited for the guilt to come. It didn't. For the first time in my life, I had set a boundary with my son, and I didn't feel guilty about it at all. I used the settlement money carefully. First, a new air filtration system for the house. Hospital grade, the technician said. It would filter out particles so small you'd need a microscope to see them. For the first time in years, I could breathe easily in my own living room. Second, a part-time homemaid. Her name was Rosa. She came 3 times a week, not because I was helpless, but because I deserved help. I'd spent 50 years taking care of everyone else. It was time someone took care of me. Third, the house itself. Fresh paint, new windows that actually sealed properly, a ramp at the front door so I didn't have to navigate stairs with my oxygen tank. Patricia and Margaret became my regular companions. Every Saturday afternoon, we gathered in my sunroom for what we jokingly called book club. In truth, we rarely talked about books. We drank wine, we shared stories, we laughed more than I'd laughed in years. David stopped by occasionally, too. He'd bring donuts from the bakery downtown and tell me about his latest investigation. Nothing as dramatic as my story, but important work nonetheless. I started keeping a journal, not the little notebook of transactions I'd maintained for decades, a real journal, thoughts, feelings, memories. "Who knows?" I told Patricia one Saturday. "Maybe someone will want to read this someday. Maybe my story will help someone else." She smiled. "It already has, Darlene, more than you know." The house felt different now, cleaner, brighter, safer. The living room where Deacon had slapped me was just a living room again. The memories remained, they always would, but they no longer had power over me. I had reclaimed my home. More importantly, I had reclaimed myself. 1 year after the broadcast, David invited me back to KPTV for a follow-up interview. "People have been asking about you," he explained. "They want to know how you're doing, whether things got better." I agreed. This time, I chose a deep purple blouse. Robert had loved me in jewel tones, and let Rosa help me with my hair. The interview took place in the same studio as before. David's questions were gentle, probing. "Mrs. Smith, what would you tell someone who's going through what you went through?" I thought carefully before answering. I would tell them that setting boundaries is not selfish, it's survival. I paused, gathering my thoughts. For 43 years, I put everyone else first. My husband, my son, my employers. I forgot that I matter too. And when the people hurting you are family? That makes it harder, I admitted. But it doesn't change what's right. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you love most. That doesn't mean you have to accept it. David nodded slowly. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't seek revenge. You went through the system. I didn't want revenge, I said. I just wanted to breathe in my own home. I wanted to control my own money. I wanted to be treated like a person, not a burden. The interview aired that Friday. Within hours, the hashtag #BoundariesAreNotSelfish was trending across the Pacific Northwest. More letters arrived, more phone calls from strangers thanking me for speaking out. A local community college invited me to speak at their social work program. I said yes. Then the senior center asked. Then a local elder advocacy group. I said yes to all of them. Because silence had kept me trapped for 43 years, and I was done being silent. One evening, about 14 months after everything happened, I sat alone in my living room. It was the quiet hour, that moment between dusk and dark when the house seems to hold its breath. Rosa had gone home. Patricia was visiting her daughter. Margaret was in court. I looked around the room. The same 4 walls where everything had happened. The chair where I'd sat with my oxygen tank. The spot where Sloan had exhaled smoke at my face. The doorway where Deacon had appeared with violence in his eyes. But the room didn't scare me anymore. I'd replaced the furniture. The old couch where Sloan had smirked was gone, donated to Goodwill. The chair I'd been slapped in had been replaced with a new recliner. Soft, supportive, my choice. The security camera was still there. I kept it as a reminder. I opened my journal and wrote, "Today, I make a promise to myself. I will never again let anyone treat me badly just because they share my blood. Family is not a license to abuse. Love is not a reason to suffer. I am worth more than I was taught to believe. My son may never change. That is his journey. But I have changed. I speak up now. I ask for help. I say no when I need to. This is my house, my money, my life. And anyone who wants to be part of it will treat me with respect, or they won't be part of it at all." I closed the journal. Outside, the last light of sunset was fading, pink and orange streaking across the Portland sky. I set down my pen, shifted in my new chair, took a deep breath of filtered, clean air, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I smiled without guilt. 1 year later. I was 74. The doctors said my lungs had stabilized, not improved. Emphysema doesn't work that way, but stabilized. They credited the air filtration system, the reduced stress, the fact that I was finally sleeping through the night. I had a new routine now. Mornings, tea on the back porch, watching the birds Patricia had helped me attract with feeders and a bird bath. Tuesdays and Thursdays, volunteer work at the Elder Rights Coalition, speaking to families about warning signs of financial abuse. Wednesdays, piano lessons at the community center. I'd always wanted to learn. Now I was finally doing it. My fingers were stiff and slow, but the teacher said I had determination. I chose to take it as a compliment. Saturdays, book club, still mostly wine and conversation. Sundays, church, followed by lunch at Luigi's. The new owner gave me a permanent discount. Deacon's monthly payments arrived like clockwork, $1,750, deposited directly into my account. I never looked at the transfers anymore. The money went straight into savings. On my birthday, a postcard arrived. No return address, but I recognized Deacon's handwriting. Thinking of you. No love. Know your son. Just 2 words. I held the postcard for a long time, running my thumb over the edges. Then I tucked it into my journal. I didn't write back, but I didn't throw it away either. Margaret asked once if I missed him. The question caught me off guard. I miss who I thought he was, I said finally. The son I raised in my head, but that person might never have existed. She nodded. She understood. Some wounds heal completely. Others just stop bleeding. I was learning to live with the scar. So here I am, Darlene Smith, 74 years old, still breathing despite everything. If you're watching this, if you've stayed with me through this whole story, I want to talk to you directly. If you see yourself in my story, if someone in your family is treating you the way Deacon treated me, I need you to hear this. You are not alone. I know it's hard. I know the person hurting you might be the one you love most in this world. Your child, your spouse, your sibling, someone you've sacrificed everything for. I know you're probably making excuses for them right now. They're stressed. They didn't mean it. They'll change. I made those excuses for 43 years. They didn't help. Here's what I learned. Love is not a reason to suffer. Blood is not a license to abuse. And silence doesn't keep you safe. It keeps them comfortable. If they're stealing from you, that's a crime. If they're hitting you, that's a crime. If they're controlling your money, isolating you from friends, making you feel like a burden in your own home, that's abuse, and there are people who can help. Call an elder abuse hotline. Call a lawyer. Call a friend. Or just call someone, anyone. Tell them what's happening. Say the words out loud. It's terrifying. I won't lie to you. The day I made those 3 phone calls, my hands shook so badly I could barely dial. But here's what I discovered. Once you speak the truth, it becomes real. And once it's real, you can fight it. You deserve to breathe. You deserve respect. You deserve to feel safe in your own home. And if the people who are supposed to love you can't give you that, then you have every right to find people who will. I found them. Margaret, Patricia, David, my church, my community. They were there all along. I just had to ask. So please, if you're suffering, ask. If you're scared, ask anyway. The right people will answer. And if no one has told you this lately, you matter. Your comfort matters. Your safety matters. Your dignity matters. Don't let anyone, not even your own child, convince you otherwise. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set a boundary with someone you love? Someone who pushed back? Someone who made you feel guilty for protecting yourself? How did it go? Did they respect it? Did they fight it? Did they try to make you the villain for saying enough? I want to know. Tell me in the comments. Your story matters too. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a neighbor, someone who might be suffering in silence right now, please share this video with them. You might be the reason they finally pick up the phone. You might be the voice that tells them it's okay to fight back. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person saying, I see you. I believe you. You don't deserve this. Be that person for someone. I wish someone had been that person for me sooner. But I'm grateful for the ones who showed up when I finally asked. So that's my story. From the slap in my living room to the settlement in the courthouse. From silence to speaking up. From victim to survivor. My name is Darlene Smith. I'm 74 years old. I raised my son alone, worked 2 jobs, sacrificed everything. And when he tried to destroy me, I chose myself instead. I'm still breathing, still learning piano, still drinking wine with my friends on Saturday afternoons, still getting those monthly checks that remind me I won. But more than winning, I'm finally free. Free to live in my own house without fear. Free to spend my own money without permission. Free to be treated like a person, not a problem. That's what I fought for. That's what I got. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it. Before you go, I have a question for you. If you were in my situation, what would you have done differently? Would you have forgiven Deacon? Or would you have done what I did, walked away to protect yourself? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and if this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me share more stories like this with people who need them. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.